Light Grid Special Report: The Plastic Fast Food and Medical Industrial Complexes of America. I'm Rockin' Larry Locken, and I'm joined today by, of course, Broadway Joe Garcia. We're going to talk a little bit about, first, we're going to touch on the plastic fast food complex, military industrial complex offshot, I like to call it. We're going to discuss some of the things. I know that we talk a lot about the calories in fast food and the absorbent amount that they seem to be increasing decade by decade in the fast food we eat. Not only that, it seems to leave you hungry a few hours later, and you're wanting to supply, you're wanting you're wanting that nutrition back for your body that you didn't get, even though you just, inhaled 10,000 calories. We're also going to talk a little bit about, the medical system and the ripoffs, the $8 a pill for a Tylenol while you're in the hospital and things of that nature, being overcharged for 500, sometimes 600% the normal costs. And we're also going to talk, as far as the fast food goes, about the addictive nature of some of this fast food and what they might put in it. Joe Garcia, all the way from Hollywood, Florida, my man, how are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you for asking. I had a little problem the other day. I lost my phone, and I had to go like through a whole lot of crap to get a new one. And the one that I got now is not as good as the one that I had before, but at least it was. It only cost me $20 because I had insurance. So I'm doing good as far as
Well, thank
making
God.
up. You know.
Well, thank God you're here with us. Thank God you got another phone, man. That's good. Hopefully, this one will stay cool on you and not burn out. But I saw a post the other night in one of these groups, and it was talking about, I don't know, it was some country over in Europe was trying to ban McDonald's completely or get rid of McDonald's because of their hideous record on nutrition. And I can't say that I really blame them, but it got me to thinking too. It got me thinking that besides the fact that a combo meal, which would be a fry, a burger, a drink, whatever, a combination like that. Besides the fact that it's loaded with 10,000 calories and the fact that there's no nutrition in it, besides all that, it really strikes me as odd how long their food seems to last. And I got to thinking, and doing some research, and I'm finding that these things, well, you talked about it before the show, about these things being, flash frozen with ammonium and things like that. And, their salads, I know, for instance, are also dusted with gaudy things like, sexual lubricant and ammonium as well. And it's really crazy. And I don't think we really know the half of it. And I think also, too, that, some of these fast foods have an addictive nature in them. I mean, for instance, have you ever wondered why they all taste the same? I mean, wherever you go, I mean, a lot of this fast food tastes the same. Um, they're calibrated to appeal to our taste buds. You know what I mean? And that inspires a lot of us to keep eating. They're not quite too meaty. They're not, too vegetable-like. I think our hypothalamus really responds, to food, and we evolved into craving these sweet, salty, bitter tastes, or devolving, I should say. Um, it just, and then when we start eating natural foods again, like if we're a fast food junkie and we start eating other foods, a lot of the times we'll develop a distaste for those other foods. I mean, I know that we were talking a little bit about before the show, and you were describing how they preserve some of these foods. Why don't you share that again with us?
Okay, well, what what they do is they like say you know you see these frozen strawberries and frozen blueberries in the supermarket in the freezer section and other berries, whatever. And what they do is before they freeze them, they they send them through a process and they wash them with chlorine water, chlorinated water. And so now the strawberries or whatever you're getting are infused with chlorine. And then after that, they um, flash freeze them with ammonia, liquid ammonia, which is in the past they used to use liquid nitrogen, which was okay for the human body to absorb. But liquid ammonia is not really good for the body to absorb. So when you defrost them or put them in a pie or whatever, you're still going to get all those residual elements that they have infused the strawberry with. So they're not really a fresh frozen strawberry as they label it on the package. They're really infused with these other chemicals. So when you ingest those chemicals, you're ingesting those other chemicals as well. So I'm not sure that that's a good thing.
No, I'm not sure either here. And I was just reading too in some of my notes that I had taken. I was reading where this 12-year-old kid in Florida, actually, a Florida kid by the name of, a little girl by the name of Jasmine Roberts, compared the bacterial content in ice water and toilet water from fast food restaurants in her local area. And it was found that 70% of the time, the ice from these fast food restaurants was dirtier than the toilet water. In fact, in
Yes.
several cases, that he went on to say, or she went on to say, that the ice tested positive for E. coli, of course, which comes from human waste. Chemicals that we normally associate with cleaning are purposely put into fast food meat. You know what I mean? Compounds like ammonium hydrochloride and things of that nature. And it's just, and I know, like I was mentioning earlier, to keep the leaves crisp on the salad, they're spraying antifreeze and sexual lubricants on these things. So not only, like I said, are we ingesting ungodly amount of calories, and there's no nutritional value, so you're hungry a few hours later, three or four.
Except, except
It,
for
it's a
except for
vicious cycle.
the sexual lubricants.
Yeah, well, except for those, that's a really, as far as I'm concerned, that's the biggest travesty of this whole thing. Is the waste of sexual lubricants being used on these salads. They could go to good use. But I mean, it's just really disgusting. And like I was reading earlier, I mean, these foods are triggered to satisfy all the nerve centers to a point. You know what I mean? Not give you too much of what you don't want, not give you too much of really what you want, but kind of even all those nerve centers out. Like it said, you want something that's not too vegetable, not too meaty, and then that really, over time, it distorts your taste buds. I mean, it's just like even going into a store and buying produce. Most grocery outlets, grocery supermarkets, the stuff tastes completely like, more and more too, and I've noticed it. It really is starting to taste like nothing. Everything is starting to taste like cardboard, unless you grow it organically yourself and get it fresh. But I mean, of course, that's several steps above, what a fast food restaurant's doing, like McDonald's. Their food is purposely made this way to make it last, to stretch the dollar, to get people addicted, and they just really don't give a shit what they're doing to people. They really don't care. And these addictive additives that are put in there to keep you wanting more and more, it's just like, it's the biggest example of empty calories that you could ever imagine. All these empty calories, a gut ache to boot, and look at all the stuff we're putting in our body. And the calories, I've been reading the statistics, and up every decade, I mean, it seems like every single thing you see on a menu at these places, the calories go up on them. And I mean, it's just crazy. A lot of that's got to be due to the additives they're adding, and they don't care. It's getting cheaper and cheaper for them to produce it because it's easier. McDonald's, in fact, has went to, serving the Egg McMuffin all day long, and one might wonder how they keep those eggs fresh all day. I mean, like they do. It's just it's crazy. The preservatives to keep the color in them and things like that. I mean, when you look at a billboard and see like a Big Mac or a Whopper or whatever, order of fries, and it looks so perfect, right? It looks so perfect. Well, that's because those foods are sprayed and maintained to look perfect in that picture, but they're actually starting to do that to the actual product more and more, to where, I mean, you're basically getting toy plastic food. You're about a step or two away from eating some plastic toy food your daughter would have in a little toy kitchen or a toy stove type thing or something, whatever. But it's just really disgusting and nasty. And I don't know, man. I haven't eaten at McDonald's in years, except I had an order of fries from there a few months ago just because. And it's just,
Well,
there's no taste to it.
let me tell you something. Their fries are delicious. I mean, they are, because I don't know what it is. They like you were saying earlier that they put these additives in there that are addictive, and that is what's happening with fast food today. Is that it is addictive, and so that you will have a hamburger at 1 o'clock, and at 3 o'clock you want another one because they put these additives that are absolutely addictive. And I know this because when I go, I don't very rarely will I go into a fast food joint. And when I do, it's because like I'm waiting at a bus stop or whatever, or just I just happen to be there for some whatever reason, and I will order some French fries. And those French fries, let me tell you something. McDonald's French fries are very addictive.
No question about it. My last 2 years of high school and a year afterward, I was a closing manager at a McDonald's, and I know I was addicted to them. That's all I would eat would be salad and like two large orders of fries, and they were so good, and they were even better when they used beef fat. And even though I'm a vegetarian, I can't believe I'm saying that. Then now they use the vegetable shortening, but it just seems to me though But have you noticed with them, Joe? They're really good right out of the fryer, but they get really nasty really quick. And it just, I don't know. After years of not eating them, they didn't seem like they used to, and I felt like I was eating more and more of a synthetic food than I ever had, probably because I was.
Yes, you can't reheat them. If you take them home and you decide to reheat them, forget about it. You cannot reheat them because once you do, they absolutely turn into plastic. Hello?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, here's something interesting. Yeah, Joe. Sorry, they do. They turn into plastic, exactly. And here's something interesting too here is that the grill marks that you see on whether it be a chicken sandwich, whether it be a Whopper, whatever it is, a quarter pound, well, I don't think McDonald's has really grill marks, but the grill marks that you see at these places really they're not from being grilled. They're sprayed on and pasted on in the factory.
That's caramel that they put on there. That's a caramel additive that they add to it, and it's done in a factory. And when it goes through the process, like they say, it's flame broiled. It's really not. They just heat it up in a microwave or whatever, or they might slide it through the oven, but it's not. You're not going to get those grill marks because it's not in there long enough for them to get those grill marks. Those grill marks are put there before the item is actually put into the oven to heat it up. And so when you get it, it's basically just reheated. It's just reheated, and those grill marks have already been there. I mean, those grill marks were there like maybe like 5 months ago.
Oh yeah, whenever they were processed at the plant. Yeah.
It was frozen for a long time.
Oh, exactly. And back to the eggs I was talking about earlier. I mean, now that they're serving eggs all day long, they're discovering that, these things are preserved in color with things like, I can't even read some of the names of these chemicals, monosodium phosphate, niacin, something or something rather. And I mean, it makes an egg that would go bad in an hour or, half hour. It makes it look good 8 hours into the future, 8 hours, you maybe made in the morning and they're still serving the same egg by the time 5, 6 o'clock comes around. And I would be willing to bet that the standards have really dropped too as far as how long they're keeping food around and whatnot, because these chemicals can make it look good forever. I mean, you
Well,
can.
I saw a couple of videos on YouTube where they like poured like acid or whatever. I don't know. They poured something or other on no molten. They poured molten copper on a McDonald's burger, and it just like rolled off like it was like uh, the copper just rolled off the burger like it was a waxed, vehicle. You know how when you pour water on a vehicle that's been waxed like a million times, and it just like pours off, and it just like poured off of the burger, and it burned everything else up. It burned up the bun. It burned up everything else, the lettuce and everything. But the burger itself stayed completely normal, and it did not burn up with liquid copper being poured on it. What does that? What does that tell you? That that okay, wait a minute. Here, stop for a second. Here's what it tells you. Here's what it tells you. Okay, let's say that there's a nuclear holocaust and all these uh, high mucky mucks had to dive into a bunker and stay there for 2 or 3 years or whatever it was, as long as it took for the atmosphere to come back to normal. And all they had to eat was these burgers that McDonald's provided, or Burger King, or whoever, right? Well, what that's telling me is that those freaking burgers will last forever. So at least they're going to get the nutrients, whatever nutrients that there is available in that burger, like protein, so that you have enough protein in your body, and the cholesterol, or whatever cholesterol you need, or the calcium, whatever calcium you need, or the calories that you needed to sustain your life. So I think what's happening here is with these fast food joints is they're getting ready for the end of times. I actually believe that they're actually getting.
That's pretty wild. That's pretty wild. But you know what? It could be the case because
Wild assumption, isn't it?
that is pretty wild. But I'm just pissed off. I think it's a bunch. It is, that's fine, but it's a bunch of bullshit that they're doing this to the food like that and deceiving the people like that. And they've been doing this for 40, 50, 60, God knows how many years, and it continues to get worse. I mean, I consider my generation the first kind of fast food generation. We grew up with parents that worked nights, and fast food was convenient, whether it was frozen food that was cheap and easy to cook in the microwave or fast food. But what I'm seeing, though, Joe, is guys, and I've had prostate problems since my early 20s. Guys are having they're having prostate issues in their 20s. They're getting high blood pressure at a really young age. The weight issues, God knows what else, heart failure at a younger age. I mean, it's from eating all this food that has no nutrients in it, for one, and then to top it off, I mean, they got you coming and going because, you're basically eating poison. I mean, they're basically screwing you with no lube, see, because they're using all that lube to put on the salads to keep the
Dude,
lettuce critters.
dude, listen to me. You see these young kids that are like in their early teens or even preteens that are like humongous. They're huge. They're like 6 foot tall. And they're like weigh 200 pounds, and all they eat is these fast food, junk food, right? But what they don't realize is that later on in life, they're going to die really, really young because of all that crap they're eating. They don't understand that. But what's happening is, like, their parents are saying, "Oh, look how big my boy is. He's a big boy." Yeah, he's a big boy. Yeah, he's a big boy because you're feeding him that crap.
Yeah,
That's why
because
he's a big boy.
he takes so many hormones and steroids. That's another thing we haven't even touched on, Joe, is the goddamn hormones and steroids, of course, that are in beef
Exactly.
anyway.
Yeah.
And so these kids are 6'4", 280, 300 pounds. I mean, these kids are getting huge. I mean, and a lot of it, unfortunately, is not just evolution. A lot of it is because of this gross shit that we've been eating, and not only our fast food we purchase, but TV dinners at the store, little quick chicken nuggets, little
Exactly. Because
whatever.
because look, the people that are really affected by this are the lower income people, which are your blacks and Hispanics, and I'm sorry about the I don't want to say but like the white trash, but you know what I'm talking about. It's the lower income people.
Yes, I grew up around them.
Right. Well, you know what I'm talking about. These lower income people that don't have a lot of money. So what their parents do is they're feeding them all this crap from these fast food stores, and so of course they're bulking up and they're getting big and they're getting strong, and they're getting huge. But what happens is later on in life they're going to reap the negative benefits of all that stuff that they're getting from the fast food joints.
Well,
And
plus teenagers are hungry as it is, and man, with that stuff, as I pointed out, because of the no nutritional value, you stuff yourself with all those calories, man. Then you're hungry 3, 4 hours later, and you're doing the same thing and eating the same shit again, and it's just
so much obesity. That's why we
terrible.
have so much obesity in this country, is because of that. We are the most obese country in the entire planet.
Yeah, it's sad. It's unfortunate, but it's so true, and it's kind of a humbling fact. And the rest of the world knows it too. In fact, they know it a lot better than we do because we're so we're so
We're not obese because we're not obese because we're eating good food. We're obese because we're eating that crap from McDonald's and Burger King and all those other fast food joints. That's why we're obese. Is because
yeah, and it's
I
well,
don't
yeah.
I don't ever go out to any of those places. Like I said, once in a while, I might be next to a McDonald's and I
Yeah.
will order some fries and I'll eat them fries. And let me tell you something, they are good. I like them.
Well, my weak spot still is Taco Bell, bean burritos, no onion, and Sif can attest to that. Uh,
I
the
love Taco.
wallpaper wallpaper paste bean burritos I like there, which Sif thinks are like wallpaper paste. Well, so does my dad. Actually, he's always giving me a bad time about that. But these foods, just we're not only getting screwed with, yeah, like you said, we're eating all these calories and getting big, and then these kids are hungry again, and they're wanting to ingest more and more of it, whether it's the aspartame in our sodas. And it's not just that it's always been that way, but I mean, it has, but it's more and more and more and more preservatives to sell more and more product. And to top it off, it isn't that really, Joe, you talk about cheap food, it isn't really. They've got us hooked so many generations in, though, that it's not that cheap anymore to take a family to a McDonald's or a Burger King or really even a Taco Bell, which they're still reasonable. But everywhere else, it's like almost what it costs to go out and eat anywhere else. But they know that they can get that kind of money from the public now. I've watched this trend the last 20 years. The prices before that had stayed pretty stable for decades, but they've just shot up and up and up at these places because people will pay for it. And I don't know where Americans, us broke ass Americans, are getting the money for it, but they are. And I mean, it's just constant. Some of these kids will eat fast food twice a day. And our school lunch program, Joe, same thing with the school lunches. It's the same kind of thing in those foods there. It's just they may not taste as good because they don't care. It's just something to put out for the kids, but it's the same kind of shit there, and it's evolved more towards fast food type food in school cafeterias. Not that it ever was good, but it used to probably be a whole lot more wholesome than it is now. And of course, what does all this do, Joe? It inflates the profits of the medical industrial complex, which is already a joke in America. And people outside of the country, it's just not something that they would be aware of because their medical systems are totally different. Ours is what it is, but it's based solely on revenue, okay, through big pharma, through doctors, unions, whatever. Okay, I mean, you take for instance, if you were in the hospital for an overnight stay and every 4 hours they came around and gave you not a pain pill, but just like an over the counter regular strength Tylenol or ibuprofen, 200 milligram ibuprofen, 500 milligram acetaminophen, whatever, they will charge you on your bill, at least here in Oregon, they will charge you $8 for that one pill. Now, down the road at the dollar store, you could get 60 of those pills for $1, and even at a Walmart or whatever, for a few bucks, you could get several hundred. So, if you went to the dollar store, you could go and get 480 of these pills for $8, 480. Now, at the hospital stay, they'll charge on your bill, they'll charge you $8 for that pill. That's not talking a Vicodin or a Percocet. I'm talking shit that you get over the counter. $8. And it makes you wonder, and then whatever food they're serving you in there, they're probably charging you 3, 4 times what a fast food place would on your bill. It's really incredible how the American system is solely, strictly based on pharmaceuticals. Like we were talking earlier before the show, it was kind of funny. I got to bring this up, Joe. I told Joe that our hospital here in town, the pharmacy about 15 years ago quit letting anybody but employees fill prescriptions at it. Big full-fledged pharmacy. And the reason being that they wouldn't let anybody who was visiting the hospital fill one there, as convenient as it is, because these other pharmacies in town were bitching that they were losing out on business because people from the ER wouldn't come to their pharmacies. They'd go to, the hospitals, which is totally logical. So now all they can give you is enough of a supply to get you through the next day if you go in there at night, and you got to go have it filled at another pharmacy because of all these other pharmacies were losing money. So they say, but I'm sure they wouldn't let somebody from another doctor take a prescription and go to the hospital and fill it either. They want it both ways. And like you were saying, in Florida, you have to have it filled at the hospital. It's just, it's so crazy, the bean counters they got and the depths they'll go to rip everybody off. It never ends, man. It goes deeper and further down the rabbit hole than anybody could ever even imagine, and then even deeper.
It's all about money. It's all about money because the pharmaceutical companies send they will send representatives from their company to doctors, on a daily basis, and the representatives from these pharmaceutical companies will go to these doctors and say, hey, look, hey, try this drug, or try that drug, or try this drug. Here, give this to your patient, and the doctor, because the doctor is going to get a kickback by promoting this drug, he will give this to the patient, not even knowing whether or not that patient can tolerate that drug or not. I mean, case in point, I went to the doctor a couple of months ago. I had my ankle was really bothering me. All right, and I said, my ankle's bothering me. I can't put a lot of weight on it. And so she prescribed me a cream to rub on my ankle. A cream that it was not over the counter. You had to get a prescription for it. So she gave me a prescription for this cream. But at the same time, she also gave me a prescription for this other pill that was an anti-inflammatory. Okay? So I put the cream on my ankle, took the anti-inflammatory pill, and I was in the emergency room that very same day because the interaction between that cream and the anti-inflammatory was a no-no. You're not supposed to take this particular pill and the cream at the same time, because what it did was it would raise your blood pressure, it would give you heart palpitations, it could give you possibly a stroke and possibly brain hemorrhage and possibly death. And I had like all these symptoms. I couldn't breathe, I couldn't stand up. I mean, I was like,
Well,
and when I showed them the cream that I was taking, they said, "Oh, you're not supposed to take this with this other pill." Oh, really? Well, then why didn't that doctor tell me that? I'll tell you why that doctor didn't.
it wasn't about the money, because it wasn't about the money, whatever. It wasn't about the money, though, huh?
Well, I don't know. It was either the doctor didn't absolutely know what the hell was going on with these interaction with these two drugs, or they just cared about, okay, I'm going to prescribe this because I'm getting a kickback from this drug company.
I'd say a little of both. I'd say a little of both. I'd say definitely a kickback because I've been to the doctors before when several times over the years when there's been a rep there wanting to meet with the doctor. He's got a suitcase full of shit. He's wanting to, give him some samples of this drug, get him signed up on, whatever their plan is to prescribe this drug to people. And the doctors get busy and they don't care, and they run people through like a meat market. And so they are getting a kickback, and they figure, okay, well, what the hell? So a lot of that shit flies under the radar here. Our medical system is unique. That's why it was, you and I talking about this. It's really not. There's really no. You can't have somebody from another country really discussing this because they have medical systems in most of these places that make sense. sure their taxes are higher, but they get better treatment. And Joe, I know we talked earlier in the pre-show, and you mentioned, well, some of the ups. We were talking about some of the ups and downs of our system versus, socialized systems in other countries. And you were talking about how, and this is the stereotype you do hear here, though, that oh no, well in those other countries, the one big bad thing about it is you got to wait forever to get into a doctor when you're not feeling good, or you got to wait forever. And Joe, you were saying like how in here, if you got a card, you can get in easy, but sometimes for an operation or something, you have to wait a long time here. And over there, if you really need to, I think that's a big misnomer because I know that in Iceland and Denmark, where Sif's from, you get in right away if you've got something really pressing. At least, I don't know, Sif, if you'd like to comment on that. Is it kind of a misnomer that Americans have about the system over there, or is it just that it's in your country that it's that way, that maybe some of the other European countries you are waiting forever to get in to see a doctor? Or can you just speak as far as what you know about Denmark and Iceland if you need to go see a doctor and it's urgent?
I can talk about what I know from both Iceland and Denmark. Other countries, I'm not so sure. Um, in Denmark, where I've been living the last 13 years, you can always go to a doctor at least once a day to acute appointments where you just pick a number, and it's an hour where you can get in and pick the number, and then you just have to wait until your number comes up. I had to have an operation, and it took actually 1 week for me to get that date for an operation after I hurt my finger working. So it's and even if you they are criticizing the system here though, because cancer patients often have to wait longer than they are supposed to, but I don't think it's more than 4 weeks. People have to wait because they have a waiting guarantee. If the hospital nearest to you doesn't have an appointment for you within the next 4 weeks, you are allowed to pick whatever hospital you like to get a better appointment, a better date for you.
Well, and I noticed too that your system is not driven by a lot of the things that doctors over here have to keep in mind. I mean, well, the doctors over here have $250,000 student loans sometimes when they get out. That's a whole nother subject. But they're not confined by pricing and it's about them. It forces people that are even good to be in this system over here. It forces them to have to think about it from a financial standpoint. You know what I mean? And to think
Yeah.
about it from, what makes more sense monetarily than what may make more sense humanitarian wise. And then I get the impression over there, though, do you find that any doctors are lackadaisical over there because they know they're guaranteed work, or it's just how the system is over there? I mean, I could see where over here in America it might give doctors a little bit more of a competitive edge, but I don't know that that's necessarily a good thing, okay? Because again, it comes right back to being financially driven and market driven over here. Whereas over there, I don't know. I mean,
No, no, because all the hospitals are free. You don't have to pay one cent when you get admitted to a hospital, so it doesn't matter really. But here the hospitals have certain specialties. So what hospital you be admitted to is regarding to your ailment really. They
okay, so
specialize in for instance, my hand surgery had to take a place at a certain hospital because that's where they specialize in it.
what about like overnight hospitals, though? I mean, is that specifically like for a certain thing? I mean, do they have just one hospital though that's for like to go for an emergency, like in the middle of the night if I don't know, if you broke your leg or you
Yes, yes,
whatever.
they do. They do. They have. We don't have ER on all hospitals. You can go to. we have acute doctors here driving throughout the night to go to people's places if they can't go to the hospital themselves and it's not a life-threatening situation. So it's a bit different than in the States.
Yeah, so you're saying doctors still make house calls over there. I don't know anywhere where they really do that in the United States per se, unless you were wealthy and were in the know, you know what I mean, or had a special favor done for you.
Yes, they do. Doctors make house calls here during the day, and after 4 o'clock, they have a certain medical service that's called the acute doctors, which is a group of doctors driving around the country from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. No, 7 a.m. Sorry, the next day, helping people.
Oh, wow,
Wow.
that's great. That's fantastic. You know, when I was growing up, we used to have doctors come to our house. Uh, you know, if I had a cold or whatever, or I was sick, you know, we could call up the local doctor, and the doctor would come to the house and, you know, give you an aspirin or whatever, and he would like at least be empathic towards you and give you whatever needs that you had at the time, and that's all gone because there is no such thing in this country as a house call. The doctors do not make any house calls. There is no such thing as that. You know, if you want to see a doctor, you have to make an appointment, and sometimes the appointment can take, you know, a week before you get it.
Yeah, those house calls have gone by the wayside of the milkman. I mean, they're long gone and forgotten about here in America, you
Yeah,
know,
God.
and things of that nature. And I know I was talking to Sif about the dentistry over there too. You know, here dentists will screw around and they won't pull a tooth. A lot of dentists will make you have a root canal. They'll, even though you're in miserable pain, they'll try to save that tooth. They want you to keep coming back in for cleanings, even if you only got one tooth left in their mouth, and pull it. A last resort, even though if that's what you want, because they want to make that money. And it's just so sadistic in their behavior. Now, over there, if you really want that tooth out, they'll pull it, but they'll only pull, I think Sif was saying, you can only get two wisdom teeth pulled at a time, and you can only get like three regular teeth pulled at a time because they want to minimize infection. I mean, I think that's a little, you know, I don't know, that ironclad rule. Maybe they should have, and you know, more, maybe like four or five at one time. But you know, I kind of like that idea to where they don't fight you on it if you want it pulled. Over here, you might get a dentist that'll pull them, and then some that'll just pull them all and leave shards in your mouth, and they do it quick because they want, you know, they're trying to get more clients in through there. You know, they don't take the time to do it like they need to. You know, they don't take that care and extra loving care to, you know, when like when you're having a hip replaced or whatever, you know, they've got a whole bunch of them they're doing that day, and it's just like a meat market through there. They just slam it in, you know, slam that new hip in, and that's that. The care is not taken over here, or they're trying to milk every bit of money out of you, and it gets ridiculous sometimes, and it makes a person not even want to go.
That's interesting that you said that about the hip replacement because my wife, well, actually my ex-wife, um, had two hip replacements. She had one, and then after a few months, she had another one done. And the second one that she had done was not correct. And so she had to go back in, and she's in the hospital now for the second hip replacement because that one that they did on that hip was not correct. They put the wrong size, whatever it was, in there, and it was not correct. And so she had to have it redone. And she's going through a lot of pain and a lot of aggravation, you know, and I'm having to help her out financially. And it was just amazing that the doctor that did this, you know, was like, oh, oh well, we'll just do it again. Well, no, I don't think so. I think we're going to have to like maybe take the law into our own hands and say, look, hey, this guy did the wrong thing the first time, so why shouldn't he have to pay for the second operation? Why should we have to pay for that? Why should we have to pay for that? Because he did the wrong thing.
Yeah, he should be responsible too for finances and stuff. Why somebody's recovering from that. I know that over in some other countries, if you have to take time off for work because you have an injury, well, you're going to get, and if it didn't, even if it didn't happen there, you're going to get paid while you're out, while you're off recovering. That ain't the case here in the United States. If you don't have, if it wasn't an on the job, if you don't have the, vacation time saved up to cover that, you're not going to get paid while you're off. It's just period. You're not going to get paid. You may get the time off from work, but you're not going to get paid. Only what you have accrued on your PTO or your, however your time off plan works at whatever corporation or company you work at. That's even if they have one where you work at. That's even if they have anything like that, which a lot of American jobs don't. So there's a big difference. Other countries really know how to take care of their people, or at least they try. I mean, we've touched on before in other shows about the free schooling and getting a siphon while you're going to school instead of having all these outrageous student loans, which, by the way, is what drives part of this medical thing because these doctors, I mean, some of them are in debt at quarter to $500,000 when they get out of school, and they've got they just spent 12 years in school, 10 years and 2 years of residency, and it just the whole system is driven everywhere you turn, every nook and cranny you look into, every rabbit hole you go down is driven by money. Money over the health, really, it is, and it's not the doom and gloom thing I'm painting. It's just the reality, unfortunately, of it. And even good people caught up in that system have to take that into consideration, and run you through, and all these unnecessary tests sometimes they'll perform. A lot of them are necessary, some aren't, but they'll do that for the money. Just like with the dentist fucking around with your teeth, making money, want you to keep coming back in instead of just pulling it if you want to. They don't care. They only care about that bottom line of the money. That's it, and they'll try to talk. They'll try to justify it any way they can, but it's really ridiculous.
Last year, I spent 10 days in a hospital because my blood pressure was really, I mean, it went through the roof, and I was like dizzy, couldn't breathe, couldn't stand up, I mean, I was like, I was about to die as far as, I thought. And so I checked myself into the emergency room, and I spent 10 days there, and they did every test you can imagine. I mean, they did a brain scan. They did sonograms on my chest. They did sonograms on my carotid arteries. I mean, they did every single test you could imagine. And they were taking blood out of me every 3 hours, And for 10 days, I spent all this time in a hospital. And they finally came to the conclusion, the reason your blood pressure went up was because you're in pain. And I go, yeah, I'm in pain 24/7 because I stopped taking medication for like 7 years. Well, then you need to get back on your pain medication. So that's what they did. They put me back on pain medication. But the bottom line is they spent all this time and money on all these tests when, a simple diagnosis could have realized that, hey, dude, your back pain is causing your blood pressure to rise.
Well, they did that, Joe. They did that, Joe, they did that because you have insurance. I mean, I've seen a scenario where two people go to the hospital for the same thing, and the amount of tests that they're going to run on you is determined, a lot of the time is determined by, well, guess what? The type of insurance coverage you have. If you don't have any insurance, which is a lot of people still in the U.S., or, they just have failed to sign up for it, they get the very, very, very minimal. You'd have been lucky to probably be there a day of those 10 days if you didn't have any insurance, period. And that's just how they work it. If you've got the insurance, it'll keep covering it. They'll run test after test after test after test on you at the maximum amount that they could possibly run and justify with any little way that they can. And whereas if you don't have that great of insurance or any at all, well, you're going to get the very minimum that they can get away with serving you, and then sometimes even less than that. And so the whole thing is just it's money driven. Until we get away from that in the United States, which hopefully slowly we are with the awakening consciousness, that's just going to be the way it is. And it's not the doom and gloom picture in these other countries a lot of the times that we're painted to sell us on it over here. It's ridiculous, and
I
it's
know.
like,
I
you
looked
know,
at I looked at the bill, and the bill was like over $80,000
oh yeah,
for the time I spent there. And I'm thinking to myself, holy mackerel! Uh,
that's
it took
cheap.
took you $80,000 to figure out that all I needed was like a couple of Percocets a day, and I'm okay.
Yeah, it shouldn't surprise anybody. I mean, that's actually kind of cheap. It's just like the analogy I just gave when you could buy 480 200 milligram ibuprofens at the dollar store. You could buy 480 of them. Well, guess what? For that same price, you're going to get one at the hospital, and that's every 4 hours that they give it to you. It's that $8 again and again. I mean, so Jesus Christ, add that up over a day. You're talking a 2,000% profit increase that they're making on people, and they're billing these insurance. It's just so much. It's big. It's worse than even people here bitched about. It's the minutia is deep. And 80,000 for 10 days, man, really? Joe actually got off pretty cheap compared to what a lot of people. It gets up into 100K after a week with a lot of the shit that they've got to do on you. And so, it's just spreading that awareness out there. We know that it's a fucked up system, right? But when you realize just how screwy it is so beyond ridiculous. It's almost so ridiculous I can't even get mad about it. It's so sick and disgusting. You
But
know,
you know what? They
yeah.
wouldn't have done any of those tests if I didn't have insurance.
Fuck no.
If I didn't have insurance, they would have said, "Okay, yeah, take a couple of aspirin, see you in the morning. See you later, bye."
Yeah, take 2 aspirin and call me in the morning. Take 2 ibuprofen and call me next week. Whatever, man. I just, it's really disgusting. And I feel like I just, needed to get on air and vent a little bit about that and the plastic food. And I really do feel like both these are, we talk about the prison industrial complex, we talk about the military industrial complexes, but really these are two of the same kind of institutions here in America. Completely powerful beyond all belief, completely, revolve around money and power and keep making more of a profit and keep making shittier and shittier products, give out a shittier and shittier service, and charge more and more money for it. And it's just, it's time that people awaken. And I don't mean go out in the street and protest, but just by talking about this, just by people having an interaction, two nurses talking together in private about how fucked up it is, that raises the consciousness vibration.
Larry, speaking of this incarceration problem that we have in this country, did you know what is the number one profit-making institution in South Florida?
The prison system, the private prison industry.
The system. Each inmate that, whether you're locked up for DUI or just for an open container because you're a homeless guy sitting on a park bench and you happen to open a container and you get locked up, the state gets $180 per day per inmate. $180 per day per inmate. Now, we have, like, locked up right now, like, more than 5,000 inmates a day. So you multiply that by 180. And what are you going to get? You're going to get over, a couple $1 million a day.
Joe, you had to go down that rabbit hole, huh, with the prison industrial complex. It's terrible here. There's more people in prison than, they'd rather put a minority in prison than have them, get a free college education and a free stipend while they're going to school, or provide them the training to get jobs such as plumbing and carpentry and, electrician type work. It's ridiculous. It's sick and it's sad. And I'm glad that, at least Bernie Sanders, whether he would do anything about it or not, who knows, but at least the fact that he's raising the awareness of that, it's sickening. We lock up more people than China and Russia and any other westernized country in the world, and it's a sick game, and people are treated like garbage in there. I did a show with a friend of mine not too long ago. It had him talking about it. I mean, that they treat people horrible. It's inhumane, and it's disgusting, and it's really terrible. And most people are in prison for nothing that was violent at all. It's just ridiculous, and that's a good topic for another show to go down that rabbit hole with. But I think that, Joe, I think we've gotten out some good stuff on here, and I think at this point, I think we're going to go ahead and call it an episode, ladies and gentlemen, out there of the Light Grid Show, Light Grid Late Night, whatever you want to call it. There really is no name to anything. It's just consciousness and love that we're sharing. I mean, I just put labels on it for my own, well, for everybody's amusement, mainly for my own amusement. Do I do this and these little funny cliches and one-liners? But Joe, before I go ahead and say my spill, you want to give everybody either some last few words of wisdom, or where they can find Joe Garcia on, in the wonderful world of the web.
Joe Garcia is on Facebook, and you can look at me and look at my face, and you'll see me on Facebook. And the only thing I have to say is that I am a 100% feminist. I am of the faction that believes that women are the flowers of the universe, and they are to be nurtured and handled with great care, because women, in my eyes, are what brings us all the life that is in this universe, because we are not here if not for a woman. We are not here if not for your mother. We are not here if some woman did not give birth to you.
Hear, hear.
So I am of the opinion that women are the absolute flowers of the universe, and they are to be handled with great care.
Way to go, Broadway Joe. Yeah, I agree. The divine feminine is what it's about, and that was beautiful. I totally concur with that, and I think that women, on average, women are. I would say that if you want to talk in 3D terms, women are at the very minimal, at least a few points more intelligent than men are, and they certainly overall have the right idea of how the world should be ran. I really do think so. I think as more of the divine feminine encompasses the earth with their energies, I think that's what's helping, the planet move out of this dark, reign that we've finally been under, and, dominated by the ego male. And I think, too, it's a matter of the two coming in together, the feminine and the, masculine coming together. But with the feminine taking the lead over, I would give them, 45% control of the company, so to speak, if I was to put it in layman terms. I really would, Joe. And I wanted to get this out real quick, too. You can find Rockin' Larry Locken, of course, at his website, larrylocken.wix, at Pleiadian Productions. Pleiadian Express Productions. Let me say that again. It's complicated. larrylocken.wix at pleiadianexpresspro.com. Okay, that will give you links to both of the YouTube channels that we have, the YouTube Google Plus channels, Pleiadian Express Productions, where we, do some of our shows on, and the Pleiadian Light Grid Project, where we do different style shows on, so to speak, some humor, some political stuff like we're talking here, issues like this that affect everybody. You can also find me at Facebook by pages of the same name, Pleiadian Light Grid Project and Pleiadian Express Productions, and you can just go to Pleiadian Groups and Pages page, Pleiadian Groups and Pages, and that'll show you a list of all the groups that I've created over the past couple of years, as well as the pages. And with that, I would like to give everybody a big cosmic dating game kiss, and of course, thank you, my twin flame, executive producer of both channels, Sif Gunnarsdottir, for being a part of this broadcast too, and doing the producing and chiming in with those wonderful words of wisdom regarding the Danish medical system. And with that, I'm going to give everybody a big cosmic dating game kiss. And for Broadway Joe Garcia, this is Rockin' Larry Locken saying see you next time. Mwah.